and everything. Hi, Trish. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Can you
Hey,
believe it's 7:30 on a Wednesday? Is it Wednesday?
It's definitely, at least in this country.
I know, right? Hey, Trish.
yes, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Yay. I'm
I'm so
glad you came
excited.
on. I'm glad you came on. I got a few more people. We got one viewer. It's coming along. It's coming along. Make sure my chats are up. Comments are going to go. Hold on. Let me pull this down. Everybody, come on in. We'll see what happens. But we're recording, so we should be good.
I'm up too.
All right, you see it?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Um, trying to get back to my screen. Oh, there we are. It's been quite a day. So anyway, it is Webinar Wednesday. Yay, 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 yay. And oh my gosh, I don't know how many times I have screamed this man's praises. I always tell the story about how I got started, and it was because Billy took me to the DJ Expo. I met Billy at where did we meet? Oh, can we tell that story?
Sephora.
Yeah,
What is
but
it?
the background of that story.
You have to tell that story. I'm not telling the story. I can tune in when it's my part, but as far as your part, you can tell that story.
So, my son has four siblings, and he is my only. But his youngest sister's mom is a beauty expert at Sephora, and we're cordial. We talk. And I was having an event. I wanted to do a pop up. I was doing Trace Slim Fashion Jewelry at the time, but I decided I want to do Ladies Night Out. I wanted to do a pop up, and she was like, "I know just the person you need to call to do DJ, and he's wonderful and he's great and he does all these other things." And she introduced me to Billy Badson, and the rest. Oh my gosh, how many years ago was that? That was 2012.
I want to say almost 13 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, probably because I moved to New York in 11, so it had to be or 10. When did I come to New York?
I think
2010.
10. So give or take. So
Yeah,
about 11 years ago.
yep,
It's
yep.
all a big blur at this particular
It
point.
is a
All a
big
big blur.
blur. So we went to the. Oops, sorry. We went to the DJ Expo. He helped me source my photo booth. So bad. It's so bad. Did I send it to you or did I send it to? No, I sent it to your house. We
Yeah,
mailed it in.
we took delivery of it. We set it all up, changed all the graphics, confirmed it working. And then I think because you were still moving around a little bit, so we kind of stored it for you for a little while, and
Mhm.
then that's what it was. And so we went through that phase. People saw us so much they used to think we were married phase.
How's your wife doing? How's your
How's your
husband?
wife doing? She's doing well. My other wife feels kind of odd about that, but my wife is doing well.
Dave said Billy rocks.
Dave, how are you, sir?
He
No.
said,
So
"Hey,
yeah, I mean
thank
half of it was kind of weird because I kind of take kind of humor in some of the things that are happening now because we were already doing a lot of big production work in the event entertainment side of the business, and
you." Hmm.
right as we started diversifying and adding more services back again, I want to say this is now maybe 12 years ago.
Hmm.
I was like, well, hey, we should add photo booth. We were thinking about doing some things with photo booths. So when you had kind of mentioned it, that's why I was already like, hey, come on down. I think
Hmm.
DJ Expos in a few weeks. I had a couple of vendors that I already had lined up because then there were only like two or three. So there weren't a ton of options.
Wasn't much to look at.
Wasn't much to look at. And then again, we kind of introduced it to Cleat, and his name's still bouncing around. And
I
you
just
know, so,
worked for Cleat a couple weeks ago for Easter. I did an Easter event for Cleat.
there you go. And so there we are. And I imagine, at least on my end, I don't know if we actually have a legitimate count anymore, but
Hmm.
I want to say we're maybe, eesh, goodness gracious, 1,100 events in, just on the photo booth side.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
Wow.
what makes today's topic so cool, backups and things like that.
Yeah.
So ask me what you want me to tell, Sharon. Oh, we have a slide. There we go.
But let me tell y'all something. Billy came prepared. Don't be getting on here thinking we just gonna always chit chat. Billy has come to teach because he is tired of Sharon calling him. I'm at an event and this isn't working.
Well, some background on
Yes, let's go back around.
on photo booth. So initially, to give a short background, like my background came from the construction industry and managing big projects. And then my son and wife wanted to do some event work. And then we naturally gravitated to doing pretty large production work. And we were in an environment where everything was, run a show, and we had to have specs, and we had to have, flight cases, and everything had to be labeled. So now my entire business is basically a couple of flight cases, and we went from there. So we kind of took some of those principles and backed them into this particular industry. And that's kind of how we came up with the we don't have the opportunity to fail kind of mantra. And
Right.
a lot of people at the time used to think we were like overkill. I mean, there was legitimately a point in time where we carried basically two photo booths to almost every job.
Yeah.
I was petrified of failing. So when I came from the entertainment world, you don't have one microphone, you have two. You have two wireless microphones, and then you have two corded microphones. If one speaker fails, then I can always have a second speaker. We have an iPhone to play music. So it was kind of like, how do I have that kind of fallbacks in place? And the only way at the time, especially in the DSLR world, was you had to have two photo booths.
Mhm.
We're not there anymore, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
Um, where you have to have two of everything. We'll talk about that a little later. But I do think you have to have a really good idea. You have to identify what your real risks are. Um, and what I mean by what your risks are is that because there are so many different types of photo booths today, each are different. Where are you still classic DSLR? Are you iPad? Are you virtual? Are you 360? Are you mirror booth? Are you array? So the options is so many at this particular point, and each and every person they're doing something different, but you're the only person that really knows your risk.
Yeah.
And you have to identify those risks and at least have some kind of plan in place. So we have this kind of like mantra, like we're going to avoid 100% failure, meaning that if we arrive on a job, whether we do exactly what we're pretty much contracted to do, we're never going to hit a point of 100% failure.
Right.
It just, you can't plan for every failure, but I think you could have backups in place that get you through an event. And that starts off with like a solid action plan. And again, one of my big hobbies for quite some time was I coached football for almost 25 years of my life.
Mhm.
And you can't you have to prepare to fail, you have to prepare to be successful. So I think that starts off with a solid action plan, like, okay, what do our failures look like, and how are we going to move forward past those? How do we move forward in the preparation side to eliminate that they happen? How do we deal with them when we're on site? You have a big line of people kind of breathing down your neck, some rowdy event planners pressing you about, I need to take one more photo. I think you had a situation like that pretty soon, a couple of weeks ago. And then more importantly, when you're a multi-op, how do you can kind of coach your team through that particular failure? And you can't do any of those things if you don't prepare for them before.
Yeah.
And then I guess lastly, you have to have a solution. And then I guess we'll go into more of that stuff a little later into the presentation. But that's kind of the beginning of it. Sharon.
Yeah, people, I'm not negative, but I always think the worst. So I'm like, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. What we gonna do if this happens? And we know things that are gonna happen because we have experienced them. And once they get experienced, it goes in a book of things that could happen. So I love Team Viewer.
Yeah, we talk about that coming up too. So
Yeah, yeah,
well,
just making sure, like you said, having the action plan. Go ahead, backups. Here we go.
yeah, so again, like just talking about backups, why have them and how, and kind of the plan to fail, just being prepared to fail. So for me, I know this may not sound all the way correct, but I'm still nervous at 1,000+ events about delivering, and again, that comes from other aspects of our industry where I'm my staff, we're attuned, we are so in tune with the fact that we may not have a second opportunity to deliver this activation. And if we don't kind of have that anxiety, then I think you're setting yourself up a little bit for failure at one point or another. You have to be a little nervous, a little anxious. That's gonna make you think about like what's next and and what you have to do. So I think in establishing like what are the risks, like understanding your equipment. So going back to that again, major failure now seems to be happening in 360s is, do you have an arm brake or in a 360 environment, does your motor fail mid-event? Are you comfortable enough to kind of convert that automatic boot, get rid of that belt, and now it just becomes a big manual spinner? Like you have to focus on, like, I cannot have 100% failure. Um, Understanding like your failure points. I'm a mirror person, for argument's sake. If you're a mirror operator, I mean, you have one big piece of equipment that you don't have an opportunity. I don't care how successful you are. There is just no way that you're gonna, a cracked mirror when you take it out of a truck. Like, what is the aftermath to that? Do you have at least a way to get through the event? Maybe the mirrors crack, but hopefully, again, you can still deliver something. So just understanding, like, hey, this is why it's important for us to super be on top of how we pack equipment, how we pack equipment out. Again, don't get into the habit of only looking at your equipment the day that it arrives on your event. A lot of time we take that booth out, you load it in, or with an attendant, or you load in yourself, you work your particular booth, you put it back in your flight cases. Again, depending upon how you offload your data, you close that flight case back up and you push it back away.
Mm-hmm.
uh
Last week we had that issue. Remember? Was it last week? I did something to the computer. me being not supposed to do something to the computer, and in my mind I said, maybe I should test it before I go to this event. And lo and behold, tested it and would have got to the event and not been able to do the event because I knew the event had no signal. Like it was no way for me to update or team view or get any kind of assistant at that job because they had me in a dungeon in the middle of the night. So I tested it and thank God Billy was awake.
yeah.
And what was wrong? We had updated the software and something happened. I couldn't remember. But anyway, we were able to get that fixed before I had to actually within minutes before I had to actually be at the event.
No, I mean, and again, like I think a lot of times in presentations, people can come off like they're avoiding the issue that they're presenting on. A
Mhm.
lot of the things that I'm going to talk about later on are purely from a level of frustration where, like I've been on events and, we invest in flight cases and they're padded and they're great. And I think that they're indestructible. And meanwhile, I open up and a little, I want to say a two-penny screw fell out of something or whatever. And we load our machines where like the computer portion is facing down. I always felt like that's the most safe environment for it. Like there's nothing below it until clearly you sit it on top of a screw. So now when you go and you open up the machine, I'm staring at a huge crack through the center of a surface, and what's the next thing? So again, luckily for us, we always send like a backup kit. And then on our DSLR work, there's always a second surface and there's a second camera. So I know worst case scenario, I can put that thing on a desk someplace. I can put a camera in someone's hand. We're gonna get through the event. The customer may not be happy, people may be upset, but what they won't say at the end of the event is we didn't get any photos, that nothing happened. We had, but again, you just can't plan for things like that. So knowing what your failure points are, trying to at least have some kind of plan in place, I think will always helps. Biggest failure point in our industry, I would think, aren't the things that you think that it would be. I mean, if you're a DSLR based provider and you're using some kind of surface, those things are pretty robust, especially considering that if you look at a company and you're like, hey, we have 100 events a year, but we still only work in the machine for 5 hours a night. That's only 500 hours of time. That's nothing. An average student, who's on the computer for 200 hours a week, they're doing that in 2.5 weeks. And services don't fail after half a semester of work. They last for years. So the surface, for argument's sake, I don't think is a huge failure point. You should have a backup. Cameras, again, I think we looked at it a few months ago. I don't want to say yesterday, but a few months ago, because I was thinking like, hey, maybe it's some time to start looking at some of our older equipment and seeing if where we are. I think we had a camera that had 102,000 shutter stops, shutter openings. Works like a beast. Again, no argument for me, but again, just knowing like, hey, like literally, like maybe it's time. Camera works. Let me take this working camera with a lot of events on it and let me put it on as a backup
Yeah.
someplace. So I feel, again, the biggest failure point in our industry is cables. I can't tell you how many people have called me midnight, Billy, help me out. I'm jammed up. What do I do? And it literally turns out to be like a USB A cable or A type cable, or it turns out to be their sync cable between their camera and a flash. And we'll get into something like that a little later, but like things that are the absolute smallest items in your kit, you have to have them, so the surface isn't moving. The camera, again, I don't know how many providers physically take their cameras out. I've seen some people do that. We don't prescribe to that because we invest in flight cases, but the camera again is not the failure point. The failure point is I have a bad flash. And again, we'll touch base on that later on. So I think focus on your cables. There's no reason that every kit that you have doesn't have a second cable of every cable that you need. The hot shoe. Oh my God, the hot shoe. Those things are literally like $7 and can kill a $3,000 activation in a heartbeat for a
Mhm.
$7 item. Like, how can you make sense of that? So have doubles of all of those items. If you're an iPad user, and again, everyone charges their iPads, quote unquote, before an event, they should be able to push through an event for us. And then you don't have a charger or you don't have a cable. So here you have this huge thing. And again, I think the next slide like really expresses it. Your company is on the line for what amounts to be a $7 cable.
Mhm.
So I think cables, there's a no-brainer. You should have every single cable you need to deliver your job. You should have it in twins, if not in a third. I've had a cable, I go my backup cable on a printed cable, the backup cable and a printed cable, brand new in a box, brand new in a bag, doesn't work. Make sure you have these cables because again, you don't have an opportunity to come back to these events. You can't be like a drywall contractor. Be like, all right, you know what? We didn't finish up the den. We'll see you tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. So make sure you have these cables. Um, I'll get into it more, but photo, lighting, printing. And I think we added one more later on called internet. But I think photo, lighting, printer are the things that you have to focus on. Do I have an ability to take a picture,
Mhm.
A, from my A kit, and do I have a backup to be able to get a photo? B, do I have an opportunity to make sure I can expose a photo? What's my secondary backup for lighting? Do I have an opportunity there? I'll talk about it later. Printing is a tough conversation. I mean, there's really no way to replicate printing. Um, a lot has changed, and I'm gonna put a asterisk on that comment because 5 years ago, I don't think there were options for photo and lighting that were inexpensive, but I think now today we have some good options. But again, just before I bore everyone to death with this, just making sure you have a plan. The second biggest failure point in failures is how you respond to the failure.
Mm.
Remain calm. Like a lot of customers are comfortable hearing, like, oh, we had a little malfunction, will be open up again in 10 minutes. You may have the surface may be on fire, camera done spun around in a circle, Thor fell out of earth with his hammer. All these things can happen, but as long as you remain calm, you're calm. The moment that you're anxious, the moment that you're saying, like, hey, this is a huge problem, it now becomes a bigger problem. And
Mhm.
again, these are things that you have to work with, like plan for those conversations. I'm just being honest with you. It's not an if, it's just a win. And it doesn't
Right.
have to be big failures. It could be at a paper jam, on a printer, and again maybe on, if you're not super talented and if you can't just remain focused, that should be a minute, 2 minutes. Grab a roll, pop a roll in, grab some tape, fit the ribbon, get it going until
Right.
you get that printer jam from the other end of the earth, and now it takes 5 minutes. So it doesn't, you could have been super prepared, but it's a printer jam. So have those conversations with your team, have those conversations in the mirror, stay calm, stay paused, stay composed, get through your problem, and then simply execute your plan. Um, One of the things that I was trying to find that can help out, because again, I'll tell a real life story and I'll just read this particular quote. And this read it verbatim because you all see it on the screen. So, like restaurant, service businesses, local retailers, everyone breaks it down. Like a single bad review could cost you $3,700 to $15,000. And in this particular quote, it didn't say you may never recover from it. Oddly enough, our company was born and bred in New York. New York's a very competitive environment. And I say competitive in sometimes not the best ways. We had done, and this is a real life story. I'm gonna omit the names. I wish I could play the law and the SVU sound in the background. But I'm gonna omit the names. But I had a competitor who we did a white label job for. They didn't pay. Um, Again, not this conversation, but so for some of my big time white labels, like I'm not stressed about the money side of it, especially if you call me in a jam. I just want to see you through. I want to get it resolved. That was our approach. We had done a bunch of work with this particular person. We went out, we delivered the job, I sent them an invoice. They didn't pay. Turned it a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And I guess maybe they just thought we were going to let it go away. But took them to court, won in court. That particular thing turned into a huge judgment. After the judgment had been thing, next thing I see, like 2 days later, some random user on Google reviews, NEM events, the photo booth fell out of the back of the truck before they got to my particular event, so on and so forth. And I'm just going to tell you honestly, we literally, in some regards, had to rebrand, not only because of a bad review that we had, but a bad review because the user was authenticated that it literally Google for years would not remove.
Mm.
So just imagine if it's like real life. Someone pays you to come in, you have this huge failure, and then, they're upset. They
Mhm.
immediately retreat to their only course of action. They're not going to show up at your door and want to fight. They're going to go to their computer. And
Mhm.
people at in the middle of the night with a little bit of passion are dangerous. So, I mean, these failures can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So I just again just stress that make sure you have an opportunity to back up. I
Yeah.
saw Shay jump in a couple minutes ago. I'm about to say his name a couple of times this conversation. Um,
I know it is.
yeah, no, well, it's coming up on the slide. It's coming up on the slide. But again, super quick. Manage your time before an event. Another thing. Um, yeah, so like that's true too. Like a bad review could be mitigated by positive reviews, but a super bad review may take 35, 40 positive reviews. Because again, we do some website work with some of our partners and our colleagues. You could be a big company, and you have 100 reviews. I would think that's a pretty accomplished thing, 100, 200 reviews, whatever it may be. One super bad review turns into like you have to have an additional 50 events. Could be like a whole year's worth of work to get past that. And I was at a bridal show. Woman walks up to me, oh, I remember when I was looking at all the companies here, I was just reading some of the reviews before we entered the show. And I remember someone said you had a photo booth that fell out. I'm like, whoa, 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 bad story. Like it didn't happen. But again, like you hear this thing. So multi-op thing, not an operator thing, but I think it applies to operators too. We're all super confident in our equipment. I think sometimes overly confident. Um, I don't know, and some people's schedule doesn't allow for extra time. But
Mhm.
again, I think we're a pretty accomplished company. We still arrive 2 hours before every event for simple work. Because again, if I'm there an hour and maybe a photo booth takes me 15 minutes, run your photo booths through a couple of tests. Make sure that they're fine. Make sure your equipment's fine. I mean, I'm not going to mention names. A few days ago, we were looking for a Best Buy for a $9 cable. And again, if it happened to be we had the time to send an attendant to go grab a cable, or we could have Instacarted the cable there. But again, just think about what you're saying to yourself, that if I had to pay two people an additional $50
Mhm.
to make sure that I'm not spending tens of thousands of dollars fighting a bad review, it's penny wise, dollar foolish, So get there with enough time. And again, grab an iPad, download Plex, download Netflix, get set up, go sit in the car, watch half of Real Housewives of Atlanta, but don't be the company that gets there an hour late and then you're like, an hour before and then you don't have what you need. Uh, we spoke about practice and failure and work around the four major points to be a successful event. And there's going to always, for me, be photo, internet, which
Ooh,
I did
Lord.
last one, lighting, and print. Having a way to be able to get through those 4 points and understanding where their failures are huge.
Mhm.
Um, Again, just in the photo world, years ago, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and DSLR was really the only way. The only secondary way you could take a photo is you had to have another camera. Again, most of our equipment now are T7Is or whatever Canon puts out new. But God, trust me, we have a bunch of T3s, T4s sitting around. There are a ton of them on Facebook Marketplace. Grab yourself a backup camera if you live in the DSLR world. But more importantly than anything else today, there's no way a solid photo booth provider should not have an iPad or an iPhone in their backup arsenal.
Mhm.
I mean, it literally these devices can do everything. I think I put the in the slide. Next one. Hold on a second. Oh, make sure you have a Pic Pic account.
Hey, Pic Pic Social.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back. So think about it for a moment. Like duplicate your events in Pic Pic. If you're a DSLR person, if you're a mirror person, if you're whatever, like have some place that you can take your business. I know a lot of people and we're past some of those moments, but because you're an iPad person and Snap picks better, and I'm not naming names, I'm just talking about the industry. But if they're internet-based products and you are not on top of it, like have another solution to go to. If you like Breeze and it doesn't work for you that particular day or something happens, make sure you duplicate that event in the virtual world. Guess what? Get yourself a 12-inch iPad. It's the same size as the Surface. Mount that thing to the front of your particular booth. Again, a cool way to do that is make like a little Velcro overlay. Put it on Velcro, boom, run your job. Some people may not even know they're not even, it's a surface there, or the surface isn't there, the DSLR isn't there. Or if it's any of the other softwares, now at least if the surface failed, I'm onto the iPad connected to the DSLR. The DSLR fails, I'm using that front facing camera. 100%. You have to deliver something. It may not work out for you in the back end. There may be some concessions you have to make, but an iPhone for 360 users, iPad for everybody else on the planet, you have to have one in your kit. It just is a must. And then internet. If there's not more of the problems that I face is just when you do have a problem and you don't have internet, make sure you have a hotspot in your kit. I don't want to say it's a mandatory thing because again, if you're using any kind of social share, then I think it's a mandatory thing. But at some events, to be honest, you may not have social share on the event, but you still need to have a hotspot. And you need to make sure that your particular phone, you have a mobile hotspot on your phone. So that way, at least I have 2 points of failure. I don't need the venue at this particular point, but I have 2 points of failure. An entire video or entire conversation we could have about the mobile hotspots feature on PC-based machines.
Mm.
Too many times I hear people say, oh, the venue's Wi-Fi didn't allow sharing. Well, mobile hotspot does. Connect your PC to their Wi-Fi, start a mobile hotspot, connect your devices to the mobile hotspot, and guess what? I don't need to share because now all the networking is on my end. But I can take advantage of venue-based Wi-Fi, and I don't have to worry about a hotspot. I don't have to worry about a phone. But again, make sure.
We did that a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, you had a problem. We did that a couple weeks ago when we commander event. But we do it all the time. It's just a better way if you have it. I mean, sometimes you don't have venue Wi-Fi, and if you don't have venue Wi-Fi, you gotta have a good hotspot, and make sure it's a 5G hotspot. Again, 5 years ago, this conversation was tough to have. Today, anything shares, but just make sure you understand it. Like like what I'm gonna go to next. If not connect, it's $15. See, shaving on the pricing all the time, for real, for real. I don't know if y'all seen his healthcare regimen lately. He got to save a lot of that money to keep that look going. So $15 plan, $15 plan. But again, make sure you have hotspot. Again, I know everyone is confident in their product, and it doesn't have to be. Like have a colleague. I mean, again, one of the great things, the three emojis. One of the great things that I always respect about Sharon is that she's way more chatty and networky than I am ever. I think one of the things that I learned in another business that I had was there's this huge debate about pricing and things like that when it comes to where to price and so on and so forth. But what you can do for free is network. And if you don't have those vehicles in place, then what do you do if the failure is beyond your capability? So making sure that, hey, it doesn't have to be whomever it is. It could just be another person that's using the same software that you have. Maybe your failure isn't their failure. They can conquer that. For argument's sake, if it's Breeze, I'm solid. If it's Darkroom, I may take a couple of minutes to move around, but if it's one of those products, like reach out to one of your peers. Make sure that you have at least a legitimate path to some kind of support. None of these companies are there at 10 o'clock at night in the middle of your event. None of them.
Pic Pic is.
Pic Pic is. Pic Pic is. Pic Pic is. But again, this is the truth of it too, right? Pic Pic is the fastest responding company in the space.
Yeah.
Period. Bar none. But even their response time, if it's 25 minutes, your event could be a 2-hour event. That's an eighth of your event is gone waiting on the response.
Right.
So then now that time that you lost, and then if there has to be a remote session, someone has to jump into a booth. Now that 25-minute wait that turns into a 25-minute resolution turns into now I literally a quarter of my event is gone. When I could have just picked up the phone and be like, boom, Peter, help me, Sharon, I'm dying. And then have that in place. And then again, just make sure I believe in Pic Pic. I think it's easy enough to make a really incredible looking event in a matter of time that gives you a place that if I have a failure, I have a place to go to. Period. It can carry itself verbatim, and everyone does something different. So I'm not going to tell you to abandon your software, but if you're just using it for social sharing and not using it for the virtual side, then I think you have an amazing product that's right there at your fingertips that can allow you to, again, solid iPad, get you through your event.
Yeah.
Lighting, I'm moving quick. I see this timer going 35 minutes. I'm coming up on an episode of Ozark, so I'm closing in. I
Oh,
got to
oh,
move
oh.
fast. Got to move fast here. So lighting, going back to our four major points. Everything else could be great. If I can't expose a picture, then I'm dead in the water yet again. These booths are great. They have flashes built in. You have amazing equipment with all these beautiful LED towers. They're all designed to do one function, and that's expose your photo. If there's ever a failure at that particular point, then again, I don't care what you gotta have every imaginable backup. If you can't expose the shot, you're dead in the water. So iPad providers, any kind of static light providers, make sure you have a backup light. You know, Focus on that. Getting through my event, getting through my event, getting through my event. I'll worry about the big failure tomorrow. If you're a flash booth, if you're some kind of DSLR and you're using a flash, again, whew, get you this kit. I wish I could make it a link, and I'll make this available on a blog on the event graphics website in a couple of days. But I think that whole kit is $30. You know, Peter, how are you, young man? I think the whole kit is $30 plus a bulb may put you at $35. Again, you may not be able to stop the crazy drunk, party goer that runs through your photo booth and you try to stop the motion, but I can still get through the event. If I have a flash that fails, I get it. I get it, everyone. Have a second flash. But if you don't have a second flash and you feel it's expensive, then what about iPad users for flying? Then again, same exact thing. One of these soft boxes or a
Mhm.
bounce light or a bounce frame is a great solution. It's a $35 get you out of your event and get you home solution. Maybe $38 because you have to buy a bulb. I think this kit came with a bulb. But again, get yourself an extra bulb. Put it in your car, in your kit, in your van, and hope that you never use it. But when you have that light fail on your iPad booth, you'll want to pull out this relic.
You are dead in the water. I can't
Right.
even imagine.
And not only that, again, I'm gonna use a chit chat mantra here. This particular industry is unique in one particular regard. There's a lot of everything in the industry. Like you and I may know, wow, look at these new booths they have.
Mhm.
Roman LEDs, and we can adjust color temperature, and we could do these amazing things. I promise you, a good portion, I'm not going to throw a percentage on it, but a good portion of your customers don't know what your best product technically is. So if you had to pull out this light, and as long as you keep it neat, and you run your cable in correctly and it looks tight, it looks clean, they have no clue that this is not what's supposed to be there. And this $35 set, and again, you could buy better sets and more expensive sets, but this literally is $35 set to get you through an event. Um, Printing. Whew. I guess the real quote is back to having some kind of social share. Other than having a secondary printer, there really is no solution for not have like you can't print without another printer. And this goes back to assessing what the risk is on your job. This may not be what people want to hear, but this is just a honest conversation from one photo booth provider to another. If I'm on a huge corporate activation with 4,000 people, I'm going to have a backup printer. If I'm doing Bob's job for his daughter in the backyard, there may not be a backup printer on the job. And again, I'm just being completely honest with you. But what there will be is that iPad that I talked about. So if you didn't offer social sharing, which again, I'm not here to talk about your business model, but I'm quite sure people still sell products that don't have social share.
Mhm.
So if you didn't have social share, but at least now if I can say to someone, listen, we had a problem with our printer. We will print out everything for you and get that to you after the fact. But here goes my trusty iPad. I can send it to you right now. That may not have been in your expense. And again, going back to what we spoke about, get you a solid plan and Pic Pic. I feel like I work for Pic Pic today, truth be told.
I know, Shay,
Uh,
you didn't pay us. We need something.
yeah, let me get this. Let me get this DoorDash credit or something tonight.
Right? I'm ordering
Um,
now.
I mean, honestly, because when you're in the business for 12 years, I think you see where it was and where it is. And every single product has become a little easier. That's a conversation for a whole nother day. I don't, not only is the price point for entry reduced, but just what you need to know to kind of literally deliver a decent event is night and day. If you're an iPad provider, you don't, I mean, again, this is just being funny, but you don't know nothing about exposures and AVs and, having to try to hunt and find the perfect settings to get the job. An iPad, I'm going to set it up, boom, boom, boom. I need a little bit of exposure. I'm going to slide a little slider. That's it. So again, when it comes to printing, the only real solution for not having printing or having a failure at a printer is having a second printer. The next best thing is being able to make sure no matter what, you can social share. And then after, if you have some kind of printer failure, because I've had them, and people will get over like, I didn't get it, because then you can always upsell to avoid the negative review. I've had a job where we had an album. I know with a level of certainty that the album was produced and handed over to the particular bride at the end of the event. 2 weeks later, post honeymoon, oh, we didn't get our album. No worries. We can send you another set of images. End of conversation. So people kind of understand these things as long as you're like, well, guess what? But every one of your guests, though, got their photos via social share. Um, Briefly talking about 360s. There's so many different ways to deliver a 360 event now, so many different products available to you. But I think at the end of the day, if you live in the DSLR GoPro world, or if you're some kind of iPhone, iPad, it just goes back to what I spoke about. 5 years ago, these iPhones and iPads weren't what they are today. Right. So if you're a iPhone 360 kind of company, make sure you have a secondary device there. If you're a GoPro on a big computer company, make sure you have an iPad there, iPhone there too. Again, it's tough. I get it. It's tough to go and say that, what, I have this $1,500 computer that I'm running Disintech on, and I have a $600 GoPro up there, and you telling me, Billy, I have to have two of them? No, I'm just telling you to have a $28 iPhone 13 Pro Max on your baby mother's account or something like that, to get through your particular event, so that way you can, finish. So iPhone, iPad is a lot. It solves a lot of backup issues in today's world.
And you say that, and I was noticing on some people's invoices, they put what type of equipment they're going to use. Do you recommend we not do that, just in case we have to swap out and do some things a little differently, or they're not going to notice?
The best word that we use, so I come from two departments in there, and again, it goes back to foresee how you sell your event. Photo booth job came in today. It's a anniversary event, someone's backyard. Repeat customer. She could care less what I show up with. So all I'm going to put there is that we're there for 4 hours, 4x6 unlimited sessions, social sharing, price. Yeah. If I'm delivering a job for PayPal or Venmo, or goodness gracious, just over here dealing with a company local to us, they want a complete spec. And when you're delivering a spec, the best choice of word is or equivalent.
Oh, okay.
So in your spec, make sure that you're writing, if they're like really on top of you as far as like equipment's concerned, because again, I think that some of it does come into branding, where, again, there are providers in our industry that have a very, very good branding model. And so people find the photo booth industry through their branding, so, oh, do you have a salsa booth, or do you have whatever booth, or do you have whatever? I mean, there's no way to get around that if they're locked in. but you could put or equivalent. So if you have to have a failure, you not go to the equivalent, then at least I'm not theoretically out of contract. I may have an upset customer, but I'm not out of contract spec because I use the terms equivalent.
And speaking of contract, and I don't know if you're going to get to this, built in, like you said, plan to fail. I know you taught me this in my contract. I have moments that are built into the contract where we can solve some of these issues. I want to say 15% of the time is what we allot for any kind of paper change. We need to fix the camera, something.
I absolutely. I mean, I would have got onto it in the pregame, but I felt like maybe I made a mistake thinking that everyone does that.
Mm-mm.
Um, Even your best providers, like very few people say we are 100% successful. I mean, I don't care what the industry is, where there's always some kind of rate of failure. Uh, in some industries, clearly the rate of failure is going to be astronomical, darn near 100%. But I don't care what it is; it's still going to be a rate of failure. Use that language in your contract. Make sure when you're onboarding your client and you're going through the process. And again, going back to some of the things that we talked about, why do you arrive 2 hours before? Give it a cool term. This isn't necessarily backup. This is marketing. This is branding. If I'm going to get there 2 hours before and I'm going to spend additional money, I have to try to figure out a way to market that and give it a term, where it's the John's photo booth guarantee. We arrive 2 hours before your event to make sure your event goes off. Uh, throw terms in there like industry leading 2 hours arrival times, and use these tools because again, it'll help you get from A to B on how you're able to increase your brand value, how you can get through it. But in your contract, just and you're onboarding them, say like, hey, you know what? Just so you know, like if we have a failure, use redundancy as a tool. And again, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it was sales. When we come in, and especially in the environment coming from the entertainment side, it's so competitive, so competitive. And one of the things I always used to say is like, well, if they get into the office, like I show them our ceremony kit. And, again, if you're not a DJ, maybe this is above you or beyond you. But I'll show them like our ceremony kit. And they're like, oh my God, that's a lot of equipment. And I say, no, well, one of the biggest reasons why we have all this equipment is because we have redundancy. We have two microphones. We're going to put two lapel mics on your groom to make sure that we're able to get through an event. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't own Shure microphones. They may fail. So what we try to do to make sure your event goes off without a hitch is that we're going to have two of them. We're going to make sure that we have two of this. So now your redundancy, almost setting them up that there could be a problem, you simply have now given it brand value to possibly sign your job.
Yeah.
Trust me, Lamborghinis fail. Ferraris fail. Paganis fail. And if you just bought a Ford Fiesta, it's absolutely going to fail. So the moral of the story is just, again, if you're building these things into your onboarding, you're talking about these scenarios when they happen in the field. If your plan is executed correctly, and then you have protection in the contract phase, contracts don't help you day up. Contractors make sure you're able to keep a little bit more of your money if things go bad. Trust you and me. Nobody on the job is like, well, I do remember reading in paragraph 7 of your contract that this can happen. They're just furious that, the bride finally made her way over and I'm in the middle of a paper jam problem, so that's kind of where we are with that. I don't know what's our next one. Okay. So how many more slides we have? Oh, we're almost at end. Jesus Christ. I feel good. Well, first, let me stop for a moment before we get moving forward and we start recapping. Does anybody in the group have a question, or I kind of just been running my mouth a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the comments have been coming. They've been talking sidebar, and I think people are sidebarring somewhere. Wait, here we go.
I should have hit the comments button, right?
No, you're good. I see it. No, I got them. I'm watching them now. I've been popping them up.
Oh, this is pretty cute. I should have not been in private chat and just hit comments. Okay. Yeah, I mean, in recap, I'm not going to read through the slides, but just in recap, um, start off with a good idea feeling. We just added onto the fleet literally today another i3 laptop. Years ago, you'd be like i3 two cores, whatever, they're slow. And this thing is a 12 Gen i3. I'm almost 1,000% positive I have no issue. Maybe rendering software a little slow, but I'll deliver a 360. Do you recommend wash lights and which ones? Again, it depends on the type of booth you run. In the DSLR world, adamant. I'm a flash photography all day. Wasn't always the case. Back in the day, started off with static lighting. In the DSLR world, flash photography. If you're an iPad driven photo booth, you don't. I wish to gosh. I mean, that should be our next invention. Figuring out some kind of way to connect the flash to an iPad. I believe there are ways, but I don't think the
Mhm.
triggers work from the software. But anywho, moving past that. If you're from the iPhone, iPad world, then I think that there are a lot of very elegant ways that you don't necessarily have to have wash lighting, but just enough lighting. Um, don't make the phone have to jump up in ISO because it's gonna pull away. I have three 360s and two iPad booths. Okay, cool. So yeah, in the iPad world, just have enough lighting. In the 360 world, you can't get enough lighting if you ask me.
Mm-mm.
I think in the 360 world, a lot of setups and a lot of, again, just talking about the industry, not talking about any particular people. The biggest differences between 360s now, in my opinion, is purely in lighting. How you choose to light your space, how you choose to expose the photo. I use Wash for aesthetics and GVM for, yeah, no, I mean, again, lighting is huge. I think what's getting lost in the industry, again, slightly off topic, but I think what's lost in the industry is that we're still a photo activation company. We have 360s and you want to say video. At the end of the day, we're here to deliver a picture. We're here to deliver an image, or we're here to deliver a video. And then the only way that you can really do that well is you have to expose the video or the photo. So yeah, I think that when it comes to some of the lighting, one of the things also, iPad, slight not a backup thing, but another thing that I think is really critical. iPads are suffering. iPad imagery is suffering from lights that are too cool.
Mm.
Some of the providers have, these big ring lights that are installed, and that they don't have the ability to change the color temperature of lighting. So in those kind of unique moments where you have a really really fluorescent room, the room is really blue, and then you have a really cool light, being able to add an offset with a little bit of warmth gives that shot a little bit more saturation. We're talking about photo stuff, so tell me to
Mhm.
shut up and stop, and I'll stop. But I think to answer your question, like if I'm gonna have a secondary light, try to have something that has some kind of color temperature to it, to where
Yeah.
you're able to dial in. If I need a little bit more warm, I can give it a little bit more warm. If I need a little bit, if I have a room that's very incandescent, so it's too warm, and I want to, but again, don't let the software do everything, because again, the software is going to ultimately affect the end product. So try to work to make sure that you have your lighting, you're good with lighting. And I'll try to do in the blog post, you'll see I'll post a page in the blog, and I'll make sure Sharon also has a link to it too. Like I'll put a couple of products that we're using to help with color temperature,
Mhm.
especially in the iPad world.
That'd
To
be good.
offset some of that.
Please do.
360s, I think, suffer again from dark environment, very, very cool light. People lose tone. They're too cool. So you're trying to find a balance, where you're taking an image that is naturally cool, and then now I'm trying to add some warmth to it, so that way now everything doesn't feel a little blue.
Mhm.
Um, Not for this conversation, but another cool thing. I'm a big advocate of post deliveries. Again, our client and the customer, or the client and the participant in the booth, are not the same. Very, very often, when you're out in the field, like you can't nail a shot. Sometimes, we can. I'm not saying can't. You don't always nail the shot. In my delivery though, in post, I'm always perfect. We're gonna run through Lightroom. We're gonna add some warmth to them. We're gonna pull off some cool to them. If they were a little underexposed, we're gonna give them exposure. 360 world is right now like you don't have a double back for that. You can edit videos, but again, just think about lighting. Make sure you have enough of it, and you have backups of it, because if you don't have it, then you're dead in the water. So
Mhm.
yeah.
This was so good, Billy. Talk to them about you and how they can get in contact with you, your services, what you do, because I can't sing your praises enough.
Um, I mean, I'm on. I'm luckily enough. I have a pretty unique name, Billy Badson. So you can almost put Billy Badson in anywhere, and you're gonna get me one way or the other. But I mean, again, I'll make sure Sharon has it. Maybe I'll post it in the comments on the link. But again, and just my personal email is really the easiest way to get in touch with me is Billy Badson. Good, like I said, at gmail.com. What we are doing right now, we're kind of in the, I guess you want to say early stage one. We are developing more resource based products for the photo event industry. We're developing a company called Event Graphics,
Mhm.
where we'll be offering support on the technical side, higher end graphic support, so extremely custom artwork, overlays, start screens, things like that. I mean, there are a ton of products that are out there for the average everyday event, and again, I don't want to tier events because I know it just doesn't sound correct, but I don't think anyone's buying. I think we're talking amongst our peers. But there are a lot of events that they're amazing products that can produce overlays really, really quickly for you. I'm not
Mhm.
saying the name because I did not get my DoorDash credit just yet,
I
but
know.
there are a ton of products that can help you get through that. Event Graphics though will be that provider for, well, we have something that we really have to get done. We have a big activation. We're looking for something cool. That's what Event Graphics will be. Um, and more importantly, we will be in more likely in fourth quarter, leaning towards some kind of 24-hour support product, Peter, um, where we'll physically be able to help photo booth riders again.
But I need like the bat phone because like I still need to be getting through quicker.
Well, that's the cool part in Sharon's case is that there's only a few people that I would be comfortable walking in my home and seeing in my refrigerator, Sharon being one of them. But one of the things that Event Graphics is, and even right now in our early sides of the website, is that we really build our team around a 24-hour process. We have staffing on the West Coast. We have staffing. I mean, I'm based right now in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's clearly East Coast, but as far Midwest as you can. And then I'm also going to be bringing on a person that is across the pond. So in reality, like we'll all have 6 or 7 hour shifts. So we should be able to offer what appears to be 24-hour coverage
Mhm.
for all of the things that we mentioned, whether it's again, I have a graphic I need, right now, and again, no matter how complicated it is, if we're running out of time, then I can hand it off to someone that's, West, or
Mhm.
they'll start the following morning. So, we're trying to get to a model where we're literally our team is working in a 24-hour shift. So, and that will also help for anybody that needs like photo booth help. But that's more like a fourth quarter release. Planning to have that product out by PBX, and we'll have everything in place. There'll be some kind of app, videos, be able to help you get through some of your problems. But
Mhm.
yeah, other than that, just for now, you can reach out to me that way or admin@eventgraphics.com, event-graphics.com. But for the most part, if you holler in any of the groups and just say Billy Badson, I'm
Mhm.
there. So
And since we got 10 viewers and you said Atlanta, we are coming to Atlanta Chit Chat. Sign up for the retreat. Billy's in Atlanta. We might go through some of this down there. This is an opportunity for you to work out that plan, how to plan to fail. But we got support for you at the retreat. Like You just need to be there. So definitely make sure if you're in the area or you can be in the area, July 24th through the 26th, we are going to be in Atlanta, Northwest Atlanta, not too far from where the Braves play. And you definitely want to be at the retreat. If you came to retreat before, yo, I am not playing this time. I'm going to bring it, y'all. So you better be there.
Last double back on that. And again, I know we've said that a lot, but I just can't stress to people that, one of the biggest things about the technical industry is when you have a problem, don't try not to be the person that's the only time somebody hears from you. Engage in these conversations, because again, having a conversation about it on a Wednesday night like today, like everyone's in a moment. Again, I'm still waiting on my DoorDash, but one of the biggest things that I personally, and I no, I
Look
think it's
what he
important.
said. Look what he did to us.
I don't think people do it enough while we have our opportunity to sing someone's praise. One of the biggest things that I love about all the Pic Pic products is you're not going to see the developer in conversations. I have a huge IT company, and my IT company, we incorporate and integrate all kinds of products for different companies all around the country. And the ones that I gravitate to are not always the least expensive. For me, they're the ones that respond the fastest, because again, I'm in an environment where I can't have 200 people offline and it's some random problem. So again, as you're making your decisions in any industry that you're in, make support a priority in your process, because when you're down, you're down. So again, make sure you make those decisions, and I hope I shared a few things with you.
And also, I'm gonna piggyback off what you said. Somebody asked me recently, why would somebody use? And this did not end up. I don't know why this ended up being a let's talk about Shay night. But somebody asked me, why would somebody new go to Pic Pic? Because like I know we didn't have a choice, right? Like Pic Pic was the best and one of the only things happening 9 years ago. So um I stick for loyalty, but the support, like you just said, the support is amazing. And not only does the company, and not just Shay, his whole team, not only does his team support you in their software, they support you as a business owner. And to put it out there, Matthew, he walked me through setting up my D's and tech. Like he didn't have to do that, but we were just chit chatting, and I was like, "Oh, you know about that?" And he said, "Yeah," and helped me. So I love the support that I get from that company. And so it's not just bottom line, how much does it cost? It's are you going to be supported in your business? So anyway, we're off of Shay and Pic Pic Social. We're back to Billy. Billy did a great job, an awesome job. We stayed on an hour. It's webinar Wednesdays. I love it. I'm going to keep it going next Wednesday. I don't know what we're doing, but we'll figure it out. But if you love this, keep coming back. I see our numbers are gradually increasing. We got a lot of new people this week. And if you guys want to throw out some topics throughout the week, sometimes it's how I pick my topics based on questions that happen, scenarios that happen. And that's what happened. We were talking when I ran into the issue, and I said, Billy, you want to come on? Let's talk about being prepared and what can go wrong on an event. And this came from a scenario that happened online and with me this week. So I appreciate the last minute request for you to
No
be here
comment.
and to
No
share.
comment. No comment. No
But I
comment.
always talk about Billy, and I never, we never get the chance to do this because you're always helping me. Oh, here comes Shay. What you got to say?
No, it was just resounding sentiments. But either way, I'm gonna say good night to everyone. Reach out in the group. I mean, if you have a question, I can help you out as best I can. And just share with each other. I mean, there's enough space
Yeah.
that people aren't competing, and just take advantage of these networking opportunities. You know, the retreats are incredible because they're not just conversations that are one way. I mean, there are great ways. Like, how do you theoretically put a value to developing a network? One of the cool things that's on Pic Pic now. Here we go again. Golly, the
Oh,
value of your list.
yeah.
And again, what networking provides, and your tribe is what's going to propel you forward. And when you have people that are in the same industry, like, you don't have to compete. Dave and I have done business, and when I was up in New Jersey, we were close, but we didn't compete. He'd call me up, ask me a question, I give him an answer, and vice versa. Peter, again, I'm just being honest with people. Pete's like been in my home. There'll never be a moment where we compete. And if he's jammed up, I'm dropping it. I'm dropping. So again, I'm just saying, like, one of the biggest things when it comes to failure is you have to be comfortable enough to have a conversation with someone else. So make those roots now, grow the seed, and then that way when you do find yourself jammed up, you don't feel like you're alone in it, and you have a few opportunities and some people you can call on to help you do it. So I'm gone, Sharon. I'm looking for that
All
pick
right.
too.
You looking for what?
I'm looking for that pick check. I gotta get my invoice in ready real
I know.
quick.
Where's our
My invoice game is serious.
All right. Good night, chit chat, and talk to you guys tomorrow. Is live chit chat. What do we do? 8:30. 8:30. See y'all tomorrow night.
Bye.
Bye.